So you can imagine, right, that if this is a
Hmm.
spiritual book, this is a spiritual book. Okay, would you agree?
Uh, uh, s- no, I
No,
don't
you don't
agree
think
with
it's a
that.
spiritual
No,
book at all.
no,
Wow,
no, I don't
that
think
is
it's a
incredible.
spiritual book. I think it's a book to we preserve our identity through stories, and it's a book to preserve identity and to make sure that it doesn't get lost. And there's some spirituality within it, of course, but I think it's more political and historic.
Wow.
I think the purpose is to guide people into sanity.
I agree, though. I agree, but I think that we can't just. I don't think we can get there without spirituality.
I think both are important, but I personally cannot let go of the fact when this is written and uh, um, what the background is, because it, it's that's why it doesn't come across as spiritual to me at all. It comes across as, uh, let's say, a nation that just lost everything, which any nation insert instead of them would, if they were smart, they would do the same. A nation who just lost everything is creating a history, a purpose, and identity to make sure it doesn't get lost, and a political tool to be used to try and do everything to bring like their home back. So that's how I see it. Of course, I think for people to follow and believe in the cause, it has to turn into religion and spirituality and a hardcore belief.
Huh.
But when you are attaching your entire identity to it, there's pros and cons to it, right? Because we see the pros, because today there is a state of Israel that's very powerful and exists, and they're back after 2,700 years of absence. They have a country. So that proves to be very powerful indeed, as far as the identity. But there's also a little insider. I lived in New York City, so I just have a gazillion Jewish friends. And one thing that the less orthodox or less spiritual ones told me was that there was a danger to growing up and having that be your entire identity, because one day you start asking questions and everything falls apart. And they actually, there's apparently, according to that friend of mine, there's a pretty high suicide rate among young Jewish male who are starting to question things, and they realize that everything they've been taught was a lie, or not a lie, but, like, you know what I'm saying? It's presented as the truth, and this is most important thing, uh, for God to come back, and you single handedly could be responsible for not allowing God to come back, right? And then you one day start asking questions, get out of your circle, and start realizing the history, the background, that a lot of these myths were shared among others, and then all of a sudden that identity collapses. So again, there's Israel, there's a strong nation, and something absolutely impressive for a nation to just go homeless for 2,700 years and then come back like this. Obviously, that's powerful, but I think to me that's also what makes this a little bit less spiritual, I guess.
But also, I mean, this was written 10th century BC, so this was
Yeah, but the same story was written also in the neighboring country, and in the neighboring country, and in the
right,
neighboring
right.
country,
But with
right?
some changes and stuff, and I think that
Of
those
course.
things are kind of important because um, I believe the Bible itself stands apart from other books only because it's every single person on earth probably has some sort of relationship with it in some way,
Mm-hmm.
whether they read it or don't read it, it doesn't matter. And everyone is very understands what it is and what it's about. It's also the New Testament specifically has been translated countless ways, and I mean there are probably 100 translations or so, probably well more than that, but um,
Exactly.
um,
And then even some Jewish people will say, like, let's say the Old Testament that we read right now is not exactly the same as their Jewish Bible,
mhm.
because I believe Torah has other bunch of other stuff.
Right.
but isn't even here,
But I
right?
I have a feeling that see so here it is again, right? We're going to put ourselves in if I was God, okay? So if I was God and I'm going to give this guy on earth, this man, right? I'm going to give him some writings, some words of mine. You know, I'm God and I'm going to give him some words that I want him to share with people. Uh I feel like I would do it in such a way where the words that I'm writing down can be translated in many different ways. And therefore, as time progresses and things and cultures change, those words will always remain relevant.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
So
yeah.
go ahead.
Well, and so that's why when it is talking about okay, the river Euphrates, the river,
Tigris.
yeah, uh, these these rivers could have an altering understanding of like what of a whole
I
yeah
mean, it's just
yeah
describe to me. It's just describing a state like
right
my
right
my stomping grounds, right? It's just describing that whole region. Call it Levant, Armenian Highlands, Mesopotamia, Babylon, whatever, that entire region up there. Um, and it's describing pretty literally, you know. If it was very vague, then I could potentially start going that direction, but it's
but
not vague at all. I'm going to be very cynical at first because I see
mm,
this, I can see it so clearly, because in this case I'm not thinking if I was God, because I don't identify with this God at all, actually. I don't identify with this God at all. So in this matter, I'm identifying with the people of the time who are interested in preserving their identity. So I am identifying with Israelites, let's say, who just lost their kingdoms, and by kingdoms, worth mentioning, from the exterior records, they were just like vassal states. They were not like as central and big and grand as sometimes obviously the Bible puts them central. So I'm going to have the purpose, and I'll tell you exactly why I think this way, because Armenia is probably this close to become extinct. You know, I hope not, but we're doing everything wrong right now. And if we do lose Armenia, I sure hope Armenians from across the entire diaspora will absolutely preserve every last bit of our history in a way that will absolutely use as guidance for us to come back to our lands. Like I that's why I identify with that so much. And I think there's a lot of parallels there. So, oh, bless you.
thank you.
So with that, it's hard for me not to see it from that lens, because I'm like, if I am the person that just lost everything and I have any kind of power, I have no power as an Armenian. I already am thinking, how am I going to preserve Armenian history? I'm already thinking about the church I'm going to build, and the basement of it I'm going to turn into an entire library and carvings and all sorts of ways to just make sure that no matter what happens on the planet, it remains, right? And I'm just a single person that is of no importance in the diaspora. And imagine the Jewish elites of the time that just lost everything. You're going to want to do everything to come back.
Right, to preserve it. Well, I mean, okay, but then we're going to start stepping into a serpent speaking to Adam and Eve. So
Yeah, I have a lot of controversial feelings about that
so
one too.
let's see how literal it gets.
Okay, so
Um,
where did we? I mean, I like that you're seeing. You talk like a different language than from what I'm reading, which is that right there. It's already very interesting to me, and because I mean, the amount of fights we have over these scriptures and who's right and who's wrong, I think it's absurd to me, because right there
yeah,
we're reading the exact same thing, and where's your mind going and where's my mind going are just very different worlds.